Guys, today we have an absolute banger. Bungie just wrote a blog post about what they have upcoming in the mid-season patch, and this has me so incredibly hyped. Like, I am genuinely like a kid in a candy shop. I cannot wait to get my hands on this on Tuesday. Not only did they announce a little bit of detail on Vault Breaker and how it's going to work, but they announced a full PvE mode being introduced in Season 3. Yeah, you heard that right. You read that right. Full PvE mode. And I've talked about this so many times before. Why does this excite me? Well, I don't always want to sweat all the time, right? Sometimes I just want a chill experience. And PvE mode is going to be quite literally that. It's going to be sponsored survival, but it's going to be available all the time. If you want to play PvP and you want to go hard, you have the option to do so. If you just want a chill night, drink a couple beers, hang out with the friends, PvE mode, baby. I'm really curious, though, how this PvE mode is actually going to work. I want to cover it a little bit later on what I'm theorizing or what I would love to actually see as the PvE mode, so stick around for that. But let's get into what Vault Breaker is going to be, because that's something that's right around the corner for us. July 21st. Oh, I am so excited, guys. So pumped. So we already knew that they were going to have Vault data, which is going to be this currency that actually allowed us to purchase things inside of Vault Breaker. And, well, I don't want to say inside of Vault Breaker, but you can upgrade your kit essentially through like a roguelite. If you're unfamiliar with that, it's like a Vampire Survivors or Sanctum from Path of Exile. Essentially, you get to run through the map, you get to collect things, and then you get to upgrade your character. But in this instance, it's going to be through the kit. So you're going to be able to upgrade your weapons, your shields, your ammo, things of that nature. I think that's going to be a really cool twist. And then on top of that, the Vault Data actually has the ability to purchase things from the Vault Data shop or the armory. And that's where it gets really interesting, because they shared a screenshot, which I'll put up on the screen here. You can buy all of the keys. So while you can't technically get the subroutines from Vault Breaker, you're going to be able to get the keys to get the subroutines from the actual PvP cryo. And I think this is a perfect way to get people's feet wet in cryo, because it is very intimidating. It is very scary to get into. While it's really not that bad, it's just that leap of faith that you need to take to actually get in there. And I think that this PvE version is actually going to open people's eyes to that, and they're going to play the PvP cryo version. And honestly, even if they don't, who cares? Like, I don't care, and I'm mostly a PvP player. The more ways that people can play this game, in my opinion, it's only going to benefit everybody, because the game that we all love is going to stick around. It's a win-win. There's quite a few different offers that they actually have. It looks like they have weekly offers, they have limited time offers. I'll put the little bit of information that they put up on the screen just so you can read through it. I'm not sure how much of an impact this is actually going to have. I think the biggest thing from this, to be honest, is the fact that you can get the unique weapons, which is really cool. But I think that the keys are going to be the main thing that you want from this, because while you're sitting in this PvE mode learning it, you're going to get comfortable with actually running the keys in the vaults. So then you can carry that over into the PvP mode. And I love how they actually give you the keys to fill that. I think there's a lot to be said too, because like the Cryo 6 key is incredibly rare. So being able to like have a deterministic way to actually get that's huge. I think the cool thing about Vault Breaker 2 is it's going to offer you just a slightly different way to play the game through, the roguelike methods. Like, you're going to be able to focus on, upgrading your weapons, upgrading your shields, upgrading ammo, things of that nature. So it's going to be a little bit more of like a customized approach, which I think is the entire goal with Marathon from the get-go, but they haven't quite nailed it. So I think giving people the ability to actually customize their shell is just going to be a net positive across the board. And it's going to be really cool to see what people come up with. I would imagine you probably have some sort of limit, so you can't unlock everything, but, or maybe we won't have enough time to unlock everything, but either way, it's going to be really fun to see what people come up with and what weapons they actually utilize. Now, if you're wondering, you absolutely can solo queue this. While it's going to be infinitely harder, you do have the ability to do that. And as a mainly solo player, that is so welcomed. I've been waiting for this since the game launched, essentially, or since Cryo released. Like, I don't feel like there's any reason we as solo players shouldn't be able to go into Cryo. Now, on top of that, you're going to be able to run duos, and you're going to be able to run trios, and you're also going to be able to do fills. So you're going to have the option to run quite literally everything if you want to. And like I said, I don't think there's any reason to discriminate against these other queues. Additionally, we're going to get some codex challenges and rewards. Nothing too crazy, but, for the people that love chasing those achievements, they're there for you. And I can't wait for you to get them so you can show them off. I also wonder if Vault Breaker, like each time that you actually zone into the map, Is it going to be like the entire map? Are you gonna have access to the entire map? Or is it going to be like you unlock Vault 1 and then you do Vault 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, eventually 7 with a compiler? Like, are those sections going to be like, you know, zoned off so you can't actually go past? So that would be like a little bit more of like an onboarding experience, or is it just literally going to be the entire map? If you guys are enjoying the video so far and you want to play with positive, like-minded individuals that are just incredibly passionate about Marathon, consider joining our Discord. We are at 1,200 plus now, and I literally created this a month ago. The growth has been absolutely crazy. I would love to have you a part of the community and gaming with everybody in there. I hop in from every now and again and game with the boys, so get in there and see what we're made of. If you want more Marathon content like this, please consider subscribing. It means the absolute world to me. I appreciate all of you guys. Now, I want to circle back to what the PvE mode, like the full PvE mode, could potentially be. I made a video a couple of weeks ago that basically outlined this idea that I had where I thought it would be really cool if it actually went through, like the PvE mode went and rotated from map to map. So like perimeter to dire marsh to outpost, outpost to cryo archive. And you could slowly like work your way through all of those contracts. I think that would be really cool to see. And they could potentially introduce some sort of, you know, roguelite system into that. My big concern here is how they are actually going to balance the loot that you're getting out of it. Because I feel like if you're playing a PvE mode, you're going to want to come out of it with rewards, right? And I don't think they can be only cosmetic. So are they going to go the route of Tarkov where you just have a entirely separate vault like PvE? Or are they going to allow you to have some sort of vault data system or currency that allows you to actually buy things for the PvP mode? I think ultimately what I'm thinking here is that they're going to try to keep the PvP mode the main focus, and they're going to try to funnel people into that mode. So I don't think that there's going to be a separate vault. Maybe eventually, depending on how well it's received or how poorly it's received, that might be a possibility. But I just don't see that as being feasible right now, especially given, you know, the amount of time that they've spent on this, which is not a lot, I don't think. Like, I don't think that they can introduce Vault Breaker and then just say that they're going to have this PvE mode and it just be Vault Breaker, right? I'm curious, like, how it's going to evolve into the other maps, because I do think it has to include the other maps, because you're not going to want to run cryo, you know, indefinitely, right? So that like begs the question, like, are they going to keep the roguelite moving forward into the rest of the zones? Like, are you going to have that currency that's going to allow you to purchase items for the main mode? I think that they have to try to funnel people into the PvP mode and kind of stick to their guns as far as that goes. But I do think that there are plenty of ways to reduce the onboarding friction and actually allow people to get used to the, you know, the flow of Marathon and keep that core, you know, gameplay loop intact. Like, how do we go through and actually introduce, you know, PvE without ruining the PvP side of the game? I honestly, like, I'm not sure that the PvP side is really going to be affected that much from this, because most of the people that want to play PvP are already playing PvP, right? And I think it's going to get to a point where I know a lot of people say like, oh, you're not going to convert the PvE players into PvP. That's not true. I've seen so many circumstances of it with my own friend groups and just, you know, across the internet. There's a lot of people that get their feet wet with PvE and then they're like, okay, this is getting a little bit too easy. I want to hop into PvP mode and start gaming there. And before they know it, they have this adrenaline rush that they've been missing, and they are just hooked on the main game. So people saying that it's not going to bring in new players to PvP are honestly kind of silly in my opinion. And then there's the aspect of, well, what does the PvE mode really look like, right? Like, is it going to be just UESC and a single runner, or you can queue into, you know, duos or trios? Or are they going to do it like Tarkov, where Tarkov actually has like PvE PMCs, like NPCs, obviously? I think Marathon could do the exact same thing with that, right? I mean, you could, what's stopping us from loading up a, you know, a vandal, a thief, a destroyer, you know, a triage on the other end, and they're just robots and they run around the map, they loot. That way you still have that sense of, you know, a little bit of PvP combat. You're experiencing what the other shells are like against you. I think that would also play into a lot of people's basically complaints that there's no real shooting range or testing ground to really figure out what your shell abilities do. And I think that's a beautiful part about like the PvE into PvP. funneling players from one mode to the other. Like the PvE mode can be utilized for so much more than just, sitting down and having a chill time. It can be utilized for essentially onboarding. And I think that's desperately what Marathon needs. And from what I've heard, that's what Destiny and Destiny 2 never really had. It was so hard to get into the game, and Marathon is even harder to get into because of the fact that you just lose your loot. Personally, I'd love to see a PvE mode that was fully fledged, that essentially ran next to the PvP mode, had separate vault space. Again, I don't think this is going to happen right now because of development time being so limited before season 3, but I would love to see a PvE mode with, runner shell bots. I think that would be the best approach because that is still going to give, that sense of players being on the map with you as opposed to just the UESC. Now moving on a little bit, because they introduced a lot of interesting things for just, the PvP mode and just the raw sandbox environment. They're making huge changes to weapons and equipment. And to start off, they're bringing back the waster, baby. We all love the waster meta. Did we not, guys? Didn't we? But in all seriousness, it sounds like they have this perfect middle ground. And I think that they've put all of the shotguns in a really interesting place. And what I mean by that is each one serves its own purpose. And I think when you have guns that serve their own purpose for different playstyles, the game really becomes interesting. You allow people to customize and play what they want to play and what suits them better. For example, people that play Destroyer and like to, shoot in and get right in the face of people are going to be running the Waster, because now the Waster at certain ranges, I'll put this up on the screen as well so you can better see and understand, is actually going to two-shot people again. Yeah, you heard that right. The Waster is going to two-shot people again. Under certain circumstances, obviously. They also removed the precision multiplier on the ballistic shotguns, meaning the Misraya and the Waster. So that basically means that they don't have headshot multipliers any longer. So they are going to be a little bit more, like, you don't have to aim them. You could just aim for the body at this point. You don't have to aim for the head. And they're going to be pretty consistent, pretty reliable. But that in turn is going to affect how quickly they actually kill people. Specifically, I'm talking about the Misraya here because we only know so far from this blog post that they're adjusting the precision multiplier on the Misraya, but I've heard that there's actually going to be more changes for the Misraya. And I think also I heard that it's still going to be like a 3-shot kill as opposed to a 2-shot kill. So that's one extra bullet. But the advantage from the Misraya to the Waster is that you can actually shoot that gun at a range. So it takes 3 shots, but you can kill from range. The Waster is 2 shots from up close. And then you have to consider the circuit breaker too, which is going to play an extremely pivotal role here because it still has a precision head multiplier. So I'm sorry, a precision multiplier. So that means that it's going to play this role of being able to actually headshot and kill much more quickly than these other two. But it also has a charge up. So you can see where like the trade-offs and, the actual pros of each of these guns relies or sits now. So I think it's going to be really, really cool because I think a lot of people are going to mix up the shotguns from here on out. And you guessed it. The D54, everybody's favorite gun, is getting adjusted. I'll put everything up on the screen too, but essentially it sounds like just against grays and everything else, it's going to be an extra shot per kill. So grays are going to be moving from 2 to 3. Purples are going to be moving from 3 to 4. I think that is going to keep the gun perfectly in balance. I still think it's going to be incredibly good. I think it'll probably still be the best weapon next to the gold bully, but I think the reason that it feels so good is because literally just shooting it feels so clean. And I think that's what made me fall in love with it. It's not even really how fast the gun kills people. I mean, who am I kidding? Yes, it is. But I truly just love actually firing the gun. So I think these are perfect changes for this weapon without actually gutting it entirely. It's definitely still going to be used. And here we go. Here is a huge, huge, huge change. I think that everybody's going to like this except for the Sentinel. Grenades and equipment, specifically bubble shields, chem grenades, EMP grenades, flechette grenades, frag grenades, and heat grenades, are going to be limited to 2 per inventory. That means you have the choice of bringing either 2 bubble shields or any of those combinations of items, but you can only bring 2 of them. Now, what does that do? Well, that's going to inherently limit the amount of grenades that are being thrown in cryo specifically. Also, bubble shields. Do I think this is a good change? Yeah, I do, because grenades were... I do like where grenades are as far as damage goes, but when you get into a fight and people just start lobbing grenades and nobody's shooting their guns, it gets really boring really, really quickly. And then if you're playing against the really, really good teams, they're just going to drop bubble shields, inch closer to you, and Mizrahi you. So that was also pretty, pretty unfun. Now, this essentially means that if they get into a fight, a good fight with other teams, then they're probably going to utilize those bubble shields, and they could potentially not have them when you run into them. So I think that's an overall good change. Again, I think that the Sentinel needs to get a little bit of love. I heard a recommendation that we should actually switch the trophy system to his regular ability and switch his grenade to his ultimate. I like that idea, but I think if they did that, they would need to give his grenade like multiple charges or something like that. Because right now, by itself, it's not very good. But if you give it like 2 or 3 charges, then we're getting real interesting, right? And it's probably going to be OP at that point, because nobody's really going to be able to push you. You could just sit there all day. But there's that defense that we're looking for. Now, here's something that is going to seem very minor, but I actually think it's going to help just the way the game feels overall. Implant Iconography update. This is essentially going through and changing all of the implants to have their own specific icons so you can more easily tell what is what. And while I don't think that it makes a huge difference in terms of like actual gameplay, I do think actually having these different abilities on the icons is just going to make the game look better. Like these little tiny graphical things, it's just like a bunch of these things combined together to make this incredible immersive experience. And this is just one of the things. You know what I mean? Like having all of these implants that just look like little helmets it wasn't fun to look at. And this is just going to be a great change overall. I think initially it's going to suck because we've kind of gotten used to what they look like, much like the first time that they changed these. But I think eventually it's going to make looting and just recognizing what implants you actually have in your inventory a lot much easier. So this is more of like a long-term change, but I do think in the short term, it's just going to help the game feel better. Last but not least, we have the Cradle evolution system. Now, the interesting part here is they're actually reverting the previous nerf that they did. So early in the season, they added a 25% increase to Cradle progression. So it took 25% more to actually get a level. They are stripping that back down to the 0%. So it's the original rate. But with this, they're actually introducing some sort of prestige system. What that means is you can essentially reset your Cradle, go all the way back to 0, and start leveling out fresh. When you get to level 70, there's an extra level where you can get 71 points. Or maybe it's not an extra level, but if you get back to 70, you get +1 additional point. So it's like a cool minor way to, keep some people progressing, but not really affecting the actual overall gameplay too much. And I touched on this in a previous video. I thought it would be really cool if they actually gave you the option season to season to reset your Cradle if you wanted to, get that extra point. So they would stack over each season. So season 1, well, I guess we're already past season 1. So let's use season 3, for example. If you get the prestige point now, you would have 71. Going into season 3, it would reset if you wanted to, or it would carry over the regular Cradle and you didn't have to level it again. If you level it again, you would get an extra point. So you'd be at 72 points. And then, let's say after 5 seasons or something, you could just wipe it if you wanted to, if it was becoming too much of a problem or was giving people too much of a advantage. The people that want to do that are going to be the more sweaty and hardcore players. So it just gives them an extra, activity to do without really affecting everybody else. With everything said, I think that Bungie is absolutely cooking. Like, if you don't feel that way, let me know in the comments down below what you feel like they missed the mark on. If you do feel like they're cooking, what are you most excited about? Again, if you guys enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing. It means the absolute world to me. I'm a small creator, and if you're looking for people to play with, consider joining the Discord. We would love to have you.
Runners who adapt, survive. Runners who survive, return. If you're still receiving these transmissions, join the faction. Learn from the dead. Find us.